Danvers. Welcome to the February 25th School Committee meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order, and would you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The mission of the Danvers Public Schools is creating a supportive environment where all learners thrive. This meeting is being broadcast on Danvers Community Access Television. Is anyone in the audience recording the proceedings? Thank you. And in anticipation of that I will forget later, our next meeting is March 9th. Tonight's meeting is focused on our budget, but outside of that, is there anyone in the audience that's looking for public comment?
Is this on? Yeah.
It is.
Hi everyone. Good evening. I'm happy that we're all back after an extended holiday or extended vacation. And I am just following up on the community letter that I just had a chance to send you right before this meeting. So I understand if you haven't had a chance to take a look at it, but I encourage you to in the next few days to take a look at especially the comments that we got from parents on the impact that special education has had for their families, for their child's education. It was very moving to read comments about special education being one of the reasons that their child's attending college, or that their child's now speaking words. And you know, how their child's now on track to higher education where they weren't before, in part because of the services they received. I always like to tell my own son's story, and that David's autistic and dyslexic, and we did get the option of going out of district and looked out of district and did not want to go, and just waiting that year, that funding you all put in place, you were able to hire a Wilson certified teacher at Thorpe, and he was able to stay and is just thriving. And I think, you know, his comments always coming home, I'm dumb, I can't read, I just look at the pictures. And in the first probably month of school this year, he came home and he was like, Mom, do you know I can read? And I'm really good at it. And he reads out loud to us now. And it's that shift in confidence, that's everything. It's not only a savings in, you know, an out-of-district placement, but think of just the mental health toll. We know students with dyslexia suffer from anxiety, depression at higher rates than students without learning disabilities. Having that confidence is going to be everything for him going forward, allow him to stay in the system. So, I mean, that staff member is a direct investment from those increased funds. So we hope that you can take a look at those comments. They're really touching. We also were able to collect 60 signatures from the community in support of you know, continued investments in special education. I hope the school committee and the town can figure out a sustainable, intentional, strategic way so that these programs are institutionalized and the funding, because we all know, you know, we're all not going to be here someday, but other people's kids are. And so, you know, we want to make sure that it's a long-term vision and a long-term funding plan as well. And I have, if anybody needs handouts, I brought them as well. I'm happy to provide them. That's it.
Thank you very much. Any other information? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were going to wait for the budget, but that's okay. Go ahead. Please, Mark. I should never assume. I know.
Thank you. Mark Zubrek, and I'm a resident of Danvers, and I do not have any children in the school department, but I have grandchildren that are coming up. The reason I stand today before you is because I was watching this meeting, because this is the only public hearing regarding the budget. And I was watching that since last week, and it's been delayed, what, 3 times? And understandably, but I think what you see today is you don't see anybody here from the public because they're worn out with the storm. And I expected this meeting to be postponed till next week so it can actually be discussed with the general public as well. So that's my whole point here. And the other one is, I know you're going to be going through the budget, but I have not seen this before. And I'm anticipating some good explanation because I think that's what this needs for the general public. The last thing is that I was told before this meeting began is that DCAT or Comcast has issues with televising this program as well. So I already inquired, but I'm just looking at it from the standpoint of general public participation. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bob. Any piece information of interest for the superintendent? All right, seeing none, let's move on to new business.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for all the flexibility. Obviously, this was scheduled for the first time on Monday, and unfortunately, with the weather, we postponed and were able to have it tonight. And fortunately, it is being transmitted by a DCAT successfully, which is important. And just as a further note, that we will post all the documents on a web page, as we always do after the hearing. Right? Because the next step from tonight is to present here. The school committee makes a decision and votes, and then it moves forward to the select board, which we know is March 7th. So the presentation I have is really just kind of a summation of the work we've been doing. There's been additional work, and first of all, before I begin, though, I want to recognize members of our team that are here tonight. Kristen Anderson, our assistant superintendent, who spent lots of time in crunching numbers and working with grants and coming up with creative ideas to save and to be able to move programming forward. Pam Crum, who spent all last week. She did not have a break because she was working feverishly to make the adjustments as we have throughout to bring forth, we feel, a responsible budget that meets the needs of our students. And Christina Ryan, our Director of Student Services, who has been working all along, not only ensuring that our programming is moving forward, but also coming up with creative solutions to ensure that our students and families are all supported, as well as our staff. And I also have to recognize our administrative council, who they're not here tonight. I asked them not to come because they've been to a number of meetings, but their input and work building this budget to where we're at tonight, I think, deserve recognition on their part. So just to kind of go through the feedback, because this is a whole process, right, where we had our budget workshop, we had our subcommittee meetings. I think the bottom line is being able to move forward with specialized programming, and we heard just through public comment, and also we've received lots of information in terms of the success of the programming for all students. Think outside the box in terms of when we're faced with a challenging financial situation, which all the units within the town and certainly within the Commonwealth are, prioritizing specialized programming, phased-in approach if needed. We know that we have lots of priorities, but we know that we can't do everything at once, and we try to be look for priorities and do the best that we can at this time. But I think in red I put up there, find non-student facing ways to save money and help with budget offsets. So what can we find that would be within our budget that would be non-facing, such as budget lines, such as transport? What are those areas that we could do to maximize that to keep as many people in front of our students? And that's why that's in red, because that was a lot of feedback from the last subcommittee meeting. Our town goal has not changed, obviously, is sustaining progress with special education and other essential programs, but also advancing academic excellence and innovation, right? And all that we've discussed over the last few meetings. It's happening in our schools, but we really feel that the specialized programming is so important to talk about, because it's not just special education, it's not about innovative practices, it's all in one. We have multiple groups of students and different backgrounds and different ability levels, but it's up to us to make sure that we meet the needs of all of our students and support our staff to move that forward. So I think that's important to note too. So in this budget, there's a lot of items that are in the budget. Many of them will be on the asks, but some of these are reallocations that we've talked about, which I think when you look at this list, it's a lot, which I think it is because our administrative team has done an outstanding job in moving pieces to fit the needs. For example, we know at the Stride and Embark programming, the SOP and the IAs, we know that we've talked about, that's the ask, but in terms of the special educator in the SOAR programming, that's a reallocation from one building to the next. In terms of the RISE programming, again, that's a BCBA coming off of contracted services back into our line, which we've had, and also the secondary teacher moving from one building and the IAs that we need to staff the program appropriately. So personnel, reading teacher is there, that's just moving off the grant into our budget, which we've had. Our ELL teacher, same thing. And the van driver from the savings in our transportation will save further with out-of-district transportation. So these are all things, if you get into the administrative needs, the team chair at the high school is in need, that's the ask. But department chairs, the director of strategic initiatives, innovation, and pathway directors aren't costing anything. That's moving pieces within our puzzle to make that happen. And the curriculum piece, I feel very good about this, where our team has worked very hard to increase our advanced placement programming for students excelling, as well as curriculum across all levels. And a lot of work has been done to move that into our grant funds, so that's supported. And then being one of the first schools in the area to have an advanced placement program and diploma at the end of next spring, I think is impressive. So we've done all these things, and we have some of these are asked, but a lot of these are within our reallocations. So Christina and team talked a lot about the successes of specialized programming. Basically, the bottom line, it comes down to, what's the return on investment? And I think it's hard to say that when you're dealing with humans, as we talked about, but ultimately when you're talking about costs for students going out of district, what can we do to create programs that keep them in district? So the extended evaluation referrals are huge because those are ones that the more that we can do in district, that's money that's not going out of district. And we know when students go out for the extended evaluations, they probably will go out of district placement, generally speaking. So those numbers are down. If you look at our overall placement of students without district placements, that's reduced. Although the tuition costs we know have gone up as everything else, but at the end of the day, I think we can demonstrate even in more detail the success of our programming, which we're very proud of. And I think that hearing the anecdotal feedback from families just really makes us feel good as a community for supporting all programming, because this supports all of our programming in our schools. Again, if you look at the actual placements, the number has gone down, and that's no small feat. That's a lot of hard work right there. When you look at the priorities, when we break it down in terms of our special education, the specialized programming, we've already gone through this, and this is also to show that we're using a phased-in approach where we know that many of these items in year 2 we're asking for, some are reallocations. We know there's just some things we can't right now, is just not the right time, that we know in a year, based on our projections, that through some reallocations, we can make that happen. So I want the committee as well as the public to know that we're very thoughtful in terms of, there are a lot of needs to build the programs, but I think we've done this all along, where we've used the phased-in approach, which I think is important because we are part of the town budget. We're a substantial part, but we know that we have to work well for all services for the betterment of our community. And if you look at our priorities at the high school, we're trying to re-image this to push rigor and outcomes in a different place, and re-image meaning providing opportunities for all of our students with pathways so they get real world experience, right? So we need people to do this. The Director of Strategic Initiatives, Innovation, and Pathways Director, again, not asking for new, that's reallocation. We need people to drive this work. EMT certification, which we're looking forward for in a year, as well as the early childhood pathway. By the way, if we receive Chapter 74 funding for these specialized programmings, that's money that we will receive from the state in addition. So that will actually help support the programming that's coming. Early college, the early college program is thriving, and we're looking to create an associate's pathway within a year. In terms of the curriculum, again, we offer a lot of advanced placement offerings, and we're pushing for more participation amongst all students. And the professional development and team department chairs, that's going to be there. And again, a lot of that's happening because of grant funding and Kristen's hard work to move things around, and as well as Pam and Christina's work too, and really our whole team. Then the interventions to work to improve students that have need, that may struggle in school, such as an after-school program that can provide education, but also provide work-study opportunities, as well as an ACE program for targeted. And we're looking at those, that is actually a small investment that we're not quite there yet, and we're looking to defer that to hopefully, maybe by the end of the year with some increased revenue, look to improve that. So when we talk about revenue possibilities, we know that we have choice, and that program, I believe, has been successful this year. We have students in district. We receive tuition from other towns, and we have the capacity to do so. And honestly, going forward, we know that we have a meeting next month to talk about choice again and looking at the amount of seats. If we can tuition in students into our specialized programmings, again, not to create a situation where we overload our existing students and stuff, but looking at very sensible ways. All districts are, by the way, are going this route because it's less expensive and oftentimes a better program for students that might be placed out of district if we use in district. We have opportunities possibly there by finishing our programs. User fee increase, we're looking at modest increases. We haven't increased in over 12 years. So we understand the issue with, it's a tight budget for everybody, but we need to be realistic here. And then we're looking at an early incentive retirement program for our teachers. I know that we're working on the final stages of that, and once that is actually going to move forward, I'll come back with the committee for a final approval to move forward to see if it's worth our while to offer the early retirement incentive. That's deferred annuity over time. So we feel that that piece may save us by those at the top step, because we have a high number of teachers in our district that are at the higher step. Although there's a risk reward with that, you have a lot of talented, very experienced, but at the other end, if teachers retire and they're very close, bringing in a teacher the midway can save money. So can we save these deferred funds at this number? That's possible, but we have a plan moving forward that if everything falls into place, we would be in a better place that might allow us to, if we were to continue, if we had the funding, again, not asking the town for more money, but looking for ways to add that assistant principal team chair at the elementary, right? We've talked at great length for that. If we're improve the programming, work study, and the ACE program at the high school, right? Then that's a small investment. The lunch recess monitors, which would free up our IAs, instructional assistants, that should be working directly with students. And again, that is a way we might be able to fund that outside of our budget. Math specialist and a digital literacy specialist, possibly grant funded. So these are things that we are looking at, this, if possible, without adding to the bottom line of the town ask. So I think we're trying to be as creative as we can without putting an additional burden on the town. And we know off in the horizon, we know the need for assistant principals at the elementary are important, but we're just not there yet. So that doesn't mean that the need isn't real and the priority is not there, it is. In terms of a school psychologist, we know that would help our programming, but we can wait for a year for that at the high school. Actually, the .5 Smith nurse is for the specialized programming we have there with students with medical needs, but we have that, but we're using that right now with substitute money. And digital literacy specialists as well as math specialists are things that we'd like to be able to add that may be grant funding over time, but we're not quite there yet. All right, so I want to move into basically what are the nuts and bolts. So looking at the obligations, these are basically the non-negotiables, the responsibilities that we have in terms of salary, contractual increases, steps and lanes, and we see that's almost at 4%. Right? We have the non-salary student services, district tuitions, transportation, contracted services. We anticipate an increase for the consortium tuition. That's not finalized, but we're trying to prepare for that. We know that that's more likely going to happen. And then the non-salary others, such as curriculum adoptions, our bus contract is up this year. The AED devices, which were up and expired, but we need to move forward and replace them. Vape detectors at the middle school. So that's right at an 8.8%, right? So that's a substantial amount that we have to fund these. We're obligated to do that. When you look at offsets, Now, what are ways that we're able to offset the actual obligations? I think one of the areas, the non-salary reduction, we do have an out-of-district placement adjustment in our favor. We have a non-salary reduction other. So the reason those numbers are in red is because the committee asked us to go back and forth and look for ways we can reduce the budget with non-student facing ways. So for example, we know that the lease at the middle school for the one-to-one will expire, we will not renew. We're looking for a way to reconfigure that with existing devices. We know that the bus fee, we're proposal at $50,000 over the course. One fewer bus, we're looking to reduce one bus off there. So those are almost the equivalent of teacher salaries. Excuse me. Kristen's done an outstanding job, again, moving the curriculum to Title I, which allows that to come out of the operating budget. We're going to suspend the voluntary professional development that takes place at the end of the school year and the beginning of the school year. It's very important that we have this because it offers professional development opportunities for teachers that are able to attend. But since it's voluntary and we know that the cost is at least $75,000, we would rather best use that to reduce the budget. And we've already talked with the union, and again, they're great in understanding that. The operating line budget reductions, again, looking across the different budget lines and what are areas that we can reduce without really impacting operations. We were able to find about it was $117,000. So we wanted to show this because if you look at that number, $500,000, that's several teachers front facing that through our hard work here, we're able to make these moves and certainly save staff, but also allow us to improve specialized programming, right? I think the next piece that's important is that we do have staff reallocations. We have retirements. We have people that may have left the district that are not going to return. We have situations where we may have some non-professional staff that we may need to make moves because of enrollment changes or reorganization. And right now at this time, we have 10.6 FTEs unit A, which are teachers, and that varies across the elementary, middle, and high school. We have IAs and BTs that are non-program, non-specialized, that will make reductions, and that's yet to be determined who these individuals are, but these are areas that we need to reduce. And central office will take a substantial reduction as well, and that's part of it because we're all in this, and we know that in order to make it work, to keep moving our programming forward, we need to make some reductions. And we look at reductions that will not impede the progress of our students in programming, right? Very strategic, very calculated, never easy, but we need to make these because we're in a position where something has to give in the budget in order to make our programming and keep building, right? Salary obligation, there's an adjustment there. Preschool tuition, some of the increases for the 2-year PANN that came into play. Stipends for the middle school and high school curriculum leaders will fall off because we've developed a department team chair model that will not require those stipends. So you look at that number, is pretty substantial in terms of that reduction. Circuit breaker is another area that, quite frankly, we're going to take more out of that, which is reimbursement from the state to offset special education, tuition, and transportation at a larger amount. And we have to give the town a lot of credit for working with us to allow that number to go up. And that is important because if that number, you get to a point where you do have to keep some cushion to make this move for unexpected expenditures, but it's there to keep us moving. And when you take that all together, that offsets our non-salary reductions, student service obligations. That's a pretty healthy total that we worked really hard to offset the obligations. The thing that we're very happy about is that we are showing no changes from the budget workshop in terms of improving our specialized programming. By the instructional assistants that we already have that we want to keep in the budget, that were primarily funded through the EA grant and other funding mechanisms, as well as the speech language pathologist, and as well as the team chair at the high school. So that addition goes in. And when you take a look at that breakdown, quite frankly, the bottom line is you take the obligations, you subtract the offsets, the specialized programming additions, and we get to the bottom line of a 4.05 increase, which I think through the reductions and continuing the programming, I'm very proud of the fact that we're at a position where we're able to continue improving our special education program and specialized program, and very proud of the fact that the investment that is being made, we need to continue this. We're at a point where the returns are showing, and we need to finalize this to bring further returns, not only to help students and families, but we need to look long range financially. Because if we do not continue funding this, we can't go backwards, because the cost will continue to go up in tuitions. Even though we can demonstrate that fewer students are going out and more extended evaluations are in, those costs keep going up. So we need to look not just this year, but these costs and changes are really steps we're taking to protect future, not only the schools, but to help the town as well. So the recommended budget is a 4.05 increase, and it's $56,151,603. When you take a look at the pie chart that we accompany, we know that primarily the salaries themselves is the biggest portion of a school budget, and generally most municipal budgets. That is down a little bit. Our special education costs are up just because of the increased tuition and the increased transportation. The transportation to and from school, we're able to shave off a little bit there, but really 95.9% of our budget is fixed. And we know that the smaller percentage, the 4.1, is curriculum materials, supplies, and equipment. We are a little bit below the per pupil expenditure from the state, and those are the latest numbers. But when you look at the piece over time, you know, we have I put the 14-year average in, excuse me, you know, at a 3.865% over 14 years. And when you put the 4.05, hopefully my math is correct, you know, that brings us down to 3.7, which, you know, when you look at time and all the things that we were doing, all the things that we're asking, again, we're so appreciative of the town's support. We're so appreciative of the effort of our educators, our administrators, and their students, quite frankly. So bringing this forward, I think it's important to note that, you know, the steps that we're taking is we've done a lot of work on this. And I wanted to say thank you to the school committee for the work and support you're showing. The subcommittee meeting, the school committee meeting, the workshop, the recommendations, the budget book, the hard work that's been on that, the budget hearing tonight. So the whole idea is the time is important because we have to present our budget to the select board by March 1st in order for them to have an opportunity to review for the March 7th budget meeting at the select board level. So that does accelerate. You know, the meeting was supposed to take place on Monday. Unfortunately, the weather you know, played havoc with that, but we have to have this meeting this week so we can stay on a timeline with the town, which I think is fair. And then we know that once it leaves the select board, depending on how that goes, then the fall meeting is actually April 15th with the FinCom, and then the town meeting is May. So if I go back, the recommended budget for school year 27 is the 4.05 increase, $2,187,872. So I'll stop there. I think I probably, I'm open for any questions, and our team is available for questions as well.
First of all, Dan, thank you and the team, the entire team, for the work that was done on this budget. So I think when we had our very first meeting and the different schools presented, different levels presented, I think that and we knew it wasn't going to be the ask, but I think it was like 8% or something if you did everything you wanted to do. But we knew that wasn't going to be it. And then the iteration that we saw, I think initially a week or so ago, was around 4.5%, I think. And my suspicion is it's tougher to go from 4.5 to 4.05 than it was to go from 8 to 4, because you sort of know what you're looking at, you know what is reasonable. But now, I think the real work was in getting this budget down to where it is now and really making those final priority choices. So I think you've laid out essentially some of the things that we are going to defer. But I'm pleased to see that we're able to continue to move ahead on the special education piece that we've been working on. I don't see any fat in this budget as I look through it. It is what it is, and it is what's needed. And I think we've worked closely with the town to arrive at a number that works for everybody. You know, when it comes to, I think all districts are having similar issues to us. And I will say, I think that we're in some ways in a better position. We have ongoing contracts settled, so we're not going to have to worry about that for a couple of years hence. We're fairly stable here in terms of what we're doing. And it was funny, I think there was an article in the Globe today about special education transportation. And, you know, talking about people looking for changes to the formula for reimbursement, which always is a year behind. So we get reimbursed in fiscal 27 based on what we spent in fiscal 26. Sometimes it just doesn't match up. But I get the sense, you know, from looking at the lay of the land, so to speak, that a lot of districts are finding this a tight budget year. A lot of municipalities are. There have been changes in federal funding which impact the ability of the state and grants and all sorts of things. So I think to get to where this budget is has taken a lot of work. I'm pleased with it, and I think it does allow you to move forward with the things that you want to work on next year. So no objections from me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to applaud like the work that you did coming out of the budget subcommittee. We definitely had a spirited conversation in regards to looking at the budget, and you did exactly what was asked. How can we create some offsets that did not have a direct impact on students? So very grateful for that. Really, really appreciate that. When I look back at the budget and I think about what was passed, I believe in 2025, we made a big jump there, over 6%, to set the stage, to give us the ability to start right-sizing where we were short. I think the impact on performance and the improvement for all the students in Danvers has been marked. And it will continue to get better. I mean, every year we identify places where we can do better. I'm really excited about the team chairs coming on board so we can specifically address our student needs on site. Disappointed that we can't get the assistant principals, but that's, you know, further downstream. But I mean, to Eric's point, going from 4.5, which was the expectation, and coming back and seeing 4.05, given the economics and the challenges that we're seeing in the town, I think are incredible. Specifically calling out the impact that the investment in special education has made with the out-of-district tuition. You know, you keep a student in Danvers, you're also eliminating the cost for transportation, but you're also keeping that student in the community with their friends, with their family, and they get to participate. You almost can't put a price on it, but we've been able to save money and put more investment where it needs to be. So, you know, being on this committee for so many years and, you know, being here from day one and seeing the work that you and your team are doing, I can't applaud it more. And that's it. I mean, I think it's incredible work, incredibly responsible budget, a really great number to be able to continue to progress and make all the other changes. The retirement, the early retirement offer, you know, other communities are making some drastic cuts, working with our union to make things like this work. Kudos. So I definitely want to applaud everyone who's been involved in this. And I know we've had many conversations about the budget and all that other stuff, but it really makes all the work worth it. So thank you. That's all.
I think the gentlemen on either side of me have hit just about every point, but one thing that I do want to applaud is the fact that with bringing that number down that we saw last month, we are not focusing on one set of students. We're focusing on every level from top to bottom. So every student, no matter who you are, there's something that's still there for you, and we're not backing off of anybody. We're still pushing for the best of everybody from top to bottom. So that's the one thing, aside from these guys, that I've definitely noticed. So I appreciate that.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. Working in public education for as long as I have, you hear a lot of different stories of different problems. And right now, districts are all having the same problem of deficits and a lack of resources. And it wasn't so long ago, and I told you, we were in a meeting and I heard somebody say something about the focus on one set of students. And I was confused because I understand the programming that's in place, or that was in place for all students. And we do want to take care of our high achievers, and we want to take care of our most vulnerable, and meet the needs of everyone else in between. That's what a good public school district does. Not only do you do that here, but that programming's been expanded. We've stayed true, and you've stayed true to your commitment to special education that started over, what, 2 years ago at least? That's now, paying dividends, and we're seeing a lot of positive responses from our families on that. But we're also, there are other untold stories of kids having difficulty with their education, getting in the buildings, staying in the buildings, reaching graduation. And there are programs now in place to help those people realize their potential. And with 26 APs, possibility of having an associate's degree when you come out of here, we're helping those families that maybe can't afford a four-year college education. There's not enough accolades to bestow upon all of you for the work that you've done to get to 4.05 from where we were. So as an educator, I'm incredibly impressed. As a member of this committee, I am just grateful that I can be part of the work that we're all doing. So thank you very much. We good? Is anyone in the audience, since this is a public meeting, does anyone in the audience have any questions about the budget or need clarification on anything that you've seen tonight? Please, Mark.
Thank you. Mark Zubrek. I just took a few notes, and I'm just looking at, I haven't looked at the numbers before intentionally. However, I have some questions that this increase is from 56 million now. I think it was 47 or 48 before. Okay, I'm going to look that up. But last year's budget was also increased by 6.4% at that time. So I heard.
That was actually 2 years ago, the 6 point.
Okay. Well, it was increased at that time,
Yes,
definitely.
correct.
And then the following year was also increased. And this year, we're going for another 4.05%. One of the questions that I just noted to myself, just listening to your dissertation about the budget, state aid. Has anybody looked at what the condition of state aid is going to be this year? Has it increased, decreased? Or are we going to be holding the bag again, just like we did a few years back? So the thing is, it may be a great thing. Could you put back the previous one? That's the one I'm looking at. That's, okay. State aid is still undefined. And what we're going to do is the town is going to be subsidizing the school department because state aid is going to decrease. I heard references, I guess, to my tirade that I had 3 years ago in regard to your special education priorities And my intent at that time was we cannot focus on special education only. We need to focus on the general population because that's 95% or even more of the students that we have in this community. The number of students, has that decreased? I didn't see what the number is right now, but what is the student count this year and how has it been performing, whether it's going down or it's going up? And what is the inclusion of this budget? How is Essex Tech being accommodated? Because those are our students as well. The thing is that we ignore that because we anticipate the state is going to pick up some of that cost, but the town is going to pick up another $4 to $5 million. So, but that's an unknown number yet. So how does this budget, with an increase of 4.05%, $56 million, how does that improve or improve our general population? And I know that we have a priority about special education, but that's an item that's been talked about right along. And I don't know, maybe I'm reading wrong, but does that include more than 10 students or less than 10 students?
Sorry, that's not clear.
I don't get the question.
Well, I was just looking at your,
Those are the out-of-district placements for 1 year, I believe.
right.
10, yes.
So I don't understand that, and I'm just wondering, how has that been incorporated into this budget? Because every year, we're going for more and more. Some of it is obligations, I understand that, but you have not taken a general review of the staffing because a lot of the communities in the North Shore are finding that they have overextended themselves and they're reducing staff. And I don't know what is this the offset that we're talking about? So we're eliminating what? Personnel, circuit breaker, and non-salary. Most of that $3.8 million is from the circuit breaker that the town is providing. Isn't that true? So I think, you know, we can't be doing this, and I hate to use strange terms, charades, but I think we need to clarify that
Well, the
because
town-
that, say
Mark,
what?
the town doesn't provide the circuit breaker, the state does, and it's provided specifically
No.
for education.
Circuit breaker comes from our investment of the town from the prior years and it comes back to our budget.
But it's supposed to be for educational purposes.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay.
And it comes from the state.
It does not come from the state. It's all our money that was invested. Come on, let's be serious. We need to look at the taxability or taxing of our residents. And you're just part of it. The thing is, how has this budget improved other than special education for our students? That's the question I'm asking. Do we have an answer for that?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
certainly do. And that's why when you take a look at under the high school, right, the advanced placement program that we have at the high school, I don't think you'll find another school in this area that has as many advanced placement courses that we have. We're adding to that. And adding an AP diploma this year is unbelievable. In terms of the pathways that we're looking to, we already have pathways. We have a number of other science programs that we have that we're increasing. So the curriculum changes for math is outstanding this year. So that will impact all students. that's built in, and that's no extra cost because Kristen's worked really hard in adding that to our grant. In terms of being able to create these early college opportunities, these programs are helping all students. And there's a lot of other curriculum development that's not even in here that's not even part of the budget because it's been grant funded. So in terms of that piece, I do question the fact that, and I understand that asking the question to me in terms of where we are improvements, special education has been improving, but all education's been improving here. We've been providing these programs. Our enrollment is relatively stable, which is a good thing. The state aid, the Chapter 70 funding has come in. We have those numbers. The town has those numbers, and they're working through that. So in terms of that piece, you know, I'm really proud of the work that we're doing to look for all students because that's been our focus. But we have to get special education under control, as we said, because of the fact that the costs keep going up, and that will impact. And I don't know if you saw the slide here, Mark, but in terms of there are some reductions here.
That's not what I was looking at. There was 10 students,
No,
or
there's
11.
there's 10.6 teachers. There's 9 FTEs for IAs and BTs being reduced. There's some central office, a significant central office position being removed. So that's substantial, and I know that's right there. That's in the first upper, where you might be facing at the right-hand corner. So we are reducing those pieces.
So just for my own edification.
So we haven't just added positions, and I know you didn't use the term willy-nilly, and I know you wouldn't say that, but the insinuation is that we've been very careful in calculating, like, I agree. There has to be some positions that we have to move, and there are reductions here. So we're going through that process.
I was very happy to hear that.
And I think that's just being responsible, and as you said, that many communities around us are in significant reductions. And I would also point out that, you know, in terms of the enrollment and also the IEP in terms of students and percentage, I think it's about 22% in our district, right, or so. But again, that doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is all students get what they need. I think your point's well taken, and that's why our focus has been not just in one area, but across the board.
That's the whole point 3 years ago, and I got very irate at that time.
I know you did.
And I did not come back until this year because I think we need to have you have some time to make the adjustments, and that's what I wanted to hear, and I didn't hear that at all. So that's something that you need to present. One of the things that I've noticed, and that was even 3-4 years ago, is that we've had some federal funded teachers through COVID and all that stuff. And then we have state funded positions by grants. And then, well, at the end of the day, we convert them under our own budget because that budget runs out after 2 to 3 years. And all we're doing is multiplying the number of staff, whether it's administrative or teachers. We increase the number of staff. And I didn't see what is the total number of staff from last year to this year. I'm going to study this a little bit more, but I don't know if I can get an answer out of you guys right now. The other item that I noted for myself is, will this early retirement incentive ultimately reduce the number of staff that we have funded under this budget? Because usually that's the intent of an early retirement function, and I didn't hear anything in regard to that. I mean, you know, why are we doing early retirement if we're not going to reduce the staff? The staff has been increasing every year because of these grant functions, and it's great that you get the grants, but how are you going to be able to support those under the budget? We have constraints on the budget, and you've seen, you know, the new town manager squirming already in the papers. And the thing is, I don't think she knows what we're in for yet. and you're just going along because you're allowed to do that, and the town has not put any pressure on the school and education budgets. So, will the early retirement evolve into a staff reduction in the future?
Let me talk about that a little bit. The object of the.
Excuse me, 1 second.
Mhm.
The one thing that I noticed sitting back there is when you don't speak into the mic,
Oh.
I can't hear you. Maybe I'm going deaf, I don't know. But I have
How's this?
I have selective hearing, you know that.
Yeah, you always have. The question in terms of early retirement or whatever grant positions end up moving to the budget through the years is always based on the number of persons that are necessary to provide the programming that we think is important. And, well, you can shake your head,
No,
but I'm
no,
telling
it's
you that
not.
because we don't, not every position, for example, that is grant funded for 2 or 3 years ends up becoming a permanent position. The ones that help the program, yeah, if we can fit them into the budget, we certainly do that. The purpose of early retirement is not to reduce the overall number of teachers. You know, we're not here to try and increase class sizes. But the early retirement benefit those teachers who are replaced, and it won't be all of them, but those teachers who are replaced will be replaced with teachers who cost less. You're looking at a budget this year, this has been pointed out, that has a reduction of the full-time equivalent of about 10 teachers and about 10 aides. So we're not just, you know.
That's in somebody's perception.
Perception.
I don't know what the number is.
Well,
I haven't seen it.
You saw it on the slide, a reduction of that FTE is full-time equivalent
Well,
positions.
my question was,
Yeah.
will this early retirement incentive in some way materialize in reduction in staff?
Maybe.
It'll save money and it'll reduce staff if it's appropriate to do so.
We have people that are retiring this year.
Can you speak into the mic?
We have people retiring this year that their positions will not be filled.
That's the way it should be
Because
operating.
it's not necessary to fill them. If it were necessary to fill them, to keep programming for our students and our families, it probably would be replaced. There's been a very direct and intentional effort that has gone on to get to 4.05% while maintaining the efforts that started with the 6.41 because special ed needed that. And those things have been continued over the last 3 years. Ultimately, to save us money from students going out of district.
I understand that.
Additionally, programming has been added for all students of all abilities in our buildings because they all matter, not one group over the other.
That's my whole
And
point.
in doing that, we've come in with a very lean budget of 4.05, which I think is incredibly fair in this day and age. If the town has a problem with that, and I'm sure they're gonna tell us that, but you have to understand at this point, this team has been working collaboratively with the town to
Yeah.
get to this number.
And I understand that it's very difficult to come up with a reasonable number, but I think what the school committee and the superintendent need to realize that budgets are not infinite. I mean, they are limited to how much money can be allocated. Because what we see here, you're saying $56 million, but then you add all of the town department allocations to the schools, to the buildings, to the fields, and you get another $20 to $30 million on top of that. So our budget right now for the schools, if it's done the same as in other communities, is probably in the $85 million range.
You think guessing at that number is fair right now?
Yes.
You actually believe that that's a fair statement to make? You don't know what that number is.
Well, I've watched it every single year, and last
And you
year,
showed up without a number. You're guessing at that number.
I'm telling you
You
that
don't even know what that number is, yet
It's
you,
in
yet
the
you are
budget.
committing to that number to this board.
it's in the town meeting warrant articles, and they have that in there. So every year, that is a percentage that's reflected for the commitment
I've
of
seen
the
those,
town
I've seen those
departments.
town warrant articles because I'm a town meeting member. Those numbers don't ring a bell.
Well, then
So
you,
it's offensive that you come in here and you throw these accusations out like you're doing. Asking questions, not a problem. Getting clarification, not a problem.
Well-
But you coming in here insinuating that things are not transparent, things are hidden, that numbers are inflated, that we continually add staff in a needless fashion, that's offensive.
well, then that's a position that you're in. So you might as well start getting used to it. Because the other item that I have noted on here is staff reallocation. This really came in at the same time as the retirement, early retirement criteria. Staff reallocation, that to me means that you're shifting people from different positions, which is very appropriate. And the thing is that that does not reduce any budget. It shuffles the deck to different departments or different functions. So one of the last things that I would like to discuss, and I don't want to offend anybody, this is
Too
not
late.
it's not a offensive posture here. This is questions and answers. That's all I'm looking for. The Essex Tech has become a political football, basically, last 5-6 years. Has the school department, because we went through some questionnaires and surveys and things like that to find out why our students are going to Essex Tech. Has that materialized in any way? Okay, so what have we found out? Because that's gonna be the next $4 or $5 million budget item that's gonna be hitting us.
So this slide right here, Mark, can demonstrate pathways, right? When you see EMT, which we know that's emergency medical technician, pathway, that's a very specific technological way. The pathways that we have in engineering, medical science. I'm sorry, is that better?
Well, now I can hear you.
Okay. The pathways are those pieces where students, we want to create relevant programming, right, that prepares our workforce for the future or college readiness. And that's what the pathways are. We've already had some pathways in our schools. We're looking to enhance them further.
Do you know what pathways are, Mark? I want to make sure that we're not throwing terms out that you don't get. Do you know what pathways are?
Sure.
Okay.
But the thing is, what I'm looking at is.
So I just want to say something that we work with Essex Tech. So we understand. The statement that you made earlier, I didn't point out, but the fact of the matter is that all of our students in Danvers, you know, we are here to serve our students. If they proceed to Essex Tech, that's wonderful. They have outstanding opportunities there. But we have opportunities at our high school too that are outstanding that might meet a different niche of a student. And it's our job, so your point about finding out what students need is that we've been digging in and I should have brought over that open house sign to your house because I wish you would have attended the open house to see the programs that we offer and what we're trying to do to show our students and families that back in the day, maybe the community high school was the option. We know families have many different options. So it's incumbent on us to show like we have these opportunities where you can graduate from Danvers High School and become an engineer. You can graduate, become a nurse. You can graduate and become a technician. You can do all those things at our high school that you can do at Essex Tech, and we support and we work with Essex Tech as well. So it's not a political football for us. So that's not true with us.
But the point was to find out why these students were leaving. And I understand that they have a lottery system for selecting students now, and there's no, you know, special selections. However, did we ever find out why the students left? We had 260 some students that went into the Essex Tech from Danvers. And I don't think that number has changed recently either.
There's been a reduction over the last couple of years. It's come down slightly.
Very little.
But yes, I think there's a lot of not enough information on our end where students can achieve what they're looking for in terms of career readiness and opportunities. And that's one thing that when we had the surveys, we've talked with families, understanding that we have opportunities here. And the lottery system, as you know, was put in by law, was passed, so that changed the whole admissions process to Essex Tech into all technical schools across the Commonwealth. So with that being said, that certainly we look for the amount of applications actually have gone down from Holton Richmond this past year. I'm not saying right or wrong, indifferent. I'm just saying that we have to do a better job of showing that we have the programs here and also develop the program. So that point is well taken. So
that was the whole point when I worked with your principal of the high school, and he's no longer here, but he and I have had long discussions in regard to what kind of a survey question can you put out?
I would invite you to come in to meet our current principal. I think you'd be very impressed with what he's done. This whole DHS 2030, that's a lot of his hard work and sweat. And I would invite you to come in. Please reach out, and I'll set up a meeting with you to sit down with our principal. I think you'd enjoy meeting with him.
Gladly, anytime. The final question is, how is the school department or the school committee responding to the Essex Tech students? Are we making any conditions that will attract them back, and how do we settle on the funding? I mean, that's the big deal. You know, my position about the funding is that it should be reduced from the Danvers School Department and put towards the Essex Tech, because that's where it really belongs, because those are our students. And we need to service all of our students.
Okay, one more time, or?
Yeah, let me just, we've actually received a number of students back from Essex Tech this year.
Good.
In fact, 3 recently. The only thing I'll say about the reasons why is I think it has to do with our 26 advanced placement courses. I think they were looking for more opportunity with advanced placement, which we had, and so they've come back to us. Other than that, we had some earlier in the year as well, so maybe 5 to 10 students have come back this year.
So it's a revolving door between the two schools.
Well, you know, you get over there and
Yeah.
you think you're gonna get something,
Right.
it's not really up to your expectations, so and we take, obviously we have to take them back, we're happy to take them back.
And also, as you know, the town pays the assessment to Essex Tech as well as all 17 member communities. So if that number goes up, obviously that's less available for our schools too. So that's the balancing act. So the town does support that through the assessment every year. So even though our numbers may have gone down, the cost of doing business has gone up. So that would account for an increased assessment.
And that is supported by both the town and the state. And the problem is that the state is not funding enough of it. For other communities it does, but for us, for some reason, can't get them to do it. And we're the host community. So I want to thank you for at least listening, and don't get offensive or offended. You can get offensive, but that's okay.
You telling me what I can and can't do now?
Oh, no. No, we can play this game for a long time. No, but I appreciate the time, but the one thing that I'm really concerned, and like I mentioned in the beginning, is that this meeting It's to an audience of three people. Is that what I think, our school system deserves? I think it deserves a heck of a lot more. So I don't know, maybe I don't know, maybe it'll raise a lot more questions at the Board of Selectmen and, well, the Finance Committee is gonna do their own thing. All right, thank you very much, and no offense.
Thank you.
You're so sensitive.
So my wife tells me all the time.
I know.
Please.
I want to approach this, part of the conversation with a lot of compassion. These are really complex budget times, and special education funding is really complex. Like Dan had said, we're dealing with human beings. It's not an easy thing, and it's not easy either to get up and ask questions that might not be popular, but it's a really important role. So I thank you for coming here and doing that. I did just sort of write down some thoughts for us to think about, and it's true. Budgets aren't finite, or not infinite, but neither is childhood. And we have to keep that in mind, and it's such a hard job that you all have to balance that. But it's the absolute truth when we're talking about humans and trying to make up that time that's lost and those skills when you're trying to recoup them. It's so much harder. We know that it's the proactive investments where we can intervene early and get services that are going to help our students thrive and ultimately reach their full capacity. And which gets me to my next sort of observation is that the programs that we're talking about, AP courses, early college, special education students are in those programs and doing so well. They are very capable. They are high achievers. And we cannot continue to undercut that and pretend like they're not part of it. That's a bias. That is a bias that is common. And that was part of what I have seen underlying some of, discussions, and when I think people don't, think about disability in a new way. That I'll get my son, David, people will say, he doesn't look autistic. And it's not, it's just a new concept. He is, though. He doesn't look it, but he is. And there's disability everywhere that we don't see. Anybody can become disabled at any time. It's true. Go to Spalding Rehab. So I really commend this committee. I think if we could get more consistent engagement from the public, you've discussed many of the issues that were brought up in length at these meetings. And that information is there. I think dialogue, happening proactively can really add a lot instead of just at this point right now. And that, my worry for long-term special education is that not so much with this committee in Danvers Public Schools, but town, my concern is that it's a very volatile type of funding that we continue to reactively rely on. What's like a longer term plan? We know this is always going to be here. Healthcare costs and special education costs are always going to be part of this. And so we're in sort of this predicament now because of the investments that weren't made 10, 20 years ago. And what that looked like is parents tell me now there was, the conditions that their kids were in were really, this town would be, if they could hear those parents and those students talk about that, they would be very embarrassed and ashamed. That's not how people should be treated. Do we want to go back? No, of course not. So I think we really do need to start planning more for a longer term future of what's this look like in 5 years. We can't just continue to patch things. The question I had was about that PD funding, the $75,000 for optional. It seems like I don't know if your staff is able to, opt into it for like 2 days or something and get a stipend. I think, you know, one of the things we hear from families is that more PD is needed, especially around some of the concepts that I just, you know, talked about that would really benefit everyone. So, you know, I hope that we can figure out a way to get more training into the hands of educators who I know really want it. And just thank you all. I appreciate everybody's time.
Right, Julie. I would entertain a motion to close public comment.
Motion to close public comment.
Seconded.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? And now I would entertain a motion in regards to either accepting or not accepting the budget.
I would move, Mr. Chair, that we approve the proposed FY '27 budget in the amount of $56,151,603 to be passed on to the Selectmen and Finance Committee for consideration.
Second.
Any discussion, further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? Thank you. Congratulations. Excellent, excellent work.
Thank you all.
At this time, I just remembered, our next meeting is March 9th, I'll say it one more time, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Danvers, good night.
Good night.